Hey everyone, before we get into the episode, I want to let you know what is going to be on this episode of That's What G Said podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about best scary movies. We have a bracket set up with the 64 best scary movies. We want to get your votes, so make sure to go follow on Twitter at It's Me, Gino B, and start voting in the polls for the best scary movie. College football, a couple of plays for the week. NFL, Week 7 recaps, and then Week 8 game previews. We'll give you our best bets, and then we'll talk some horse racing for Saturday, and for Sunday, it's closing day at Keeneland, a couple plays there. And then Sunday, they have a really cool all 2-year-old card at Churchill Downs, a few races that we'll talk about. I think have a couple plays on that Sunday card. So lots, especially if you're one who likes to fire away. We'll have some college football, some NFL football for you, and some horse racing plays for Saturday and for Sunday. Sit back and enjoy. And don't forget, Stable Duel. Get to StableDuel.com right now or look for the Stable Duel app. They announced their back-to-back at the Breeders' Cup contest. Stable Duel has a new game. It combines fantasy sports and handicapping, and they have their biggest and their most exciting promotional contest to date, back-to-back at the Breeders' Cup. All the contestants, including me, will be competing over 2 days, different contests. And on Friday, there will be $5,000 in prizes, and on Saturday, $15,000 in prizes. And you don't have to be just a winner. Payouts to the top 50 finishers Friday, the top 75 finishers on Saturday. Next week, we're going to do a full Stable Duel lineup. So if you don't know what it is, go right now, download, sign up. It's completely free. Makes total sense to just take a shot, see if it's something that you're interested in, and I'll help you out. We'll set a lineup next week as soon as the entries for the Breeders' Cup are out. Enjoy this episode. Hello, everybody. No time to waste today. We have a lot to talk about, and I'm a little late getting this episode out, so I want to make sure we get everything in for you, so plenty of time for those of you who are playing the college games or the NFL games or who are playing some races this weekend. Before we get into all the good sports stuff, it's Halloween time, right? It's October. It's that scary time of the year, so the next best movie tournament for That's What G Said is going to be Best Scary Movies. We asked you for all of your specific favorite scary movies. I got a lot of posts from you on Twitter at It's Me, Gino B. Thanks to everyone for sending in your post, and the field is now set. I am quickly going to go through the bracket of 64, and the voting will begin. By the time this podcast is out and you're listening, there will be some polls up on Twitter at It's Me, Gino B. I think one of the heavy favorites, The Exorcist against Shallow Grove, Night of the Living Dead versus The Strangers, It versus Helter Skelter, The Ring versus The Others, The Birds versus The Thing, Evil Dead versus When a Stranger Calls, Carrie versus Don't Look Now, Scream versus Videodrome. Psycho, another one I figure will probably make it to one of the final rounds versus Black Christmas, Get Out versus Hounds of Love, The Fog versus Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Child's Play versus The Fly, Silence of the Lambs, Hello Clarice versus Pet Sematary, Invasion of the Body Snatchers versus Paranormal Activity, The Omen versus The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, Jaws versus The Blob. That's the first half of the bracket. Second half, Halloween versus 28 Days Later, Children of the Corn versus The Purge, Alien versus The Craft, The Blair Witch Project versus It Follows, Saw versus Dawn of the Dead, The Descent versus Cabin in the Woods, Jeepers Creepers versus The Sixth Sense, Nightmare on Elm Street versus The Conjuring, Poltergeist versus House of Wax, The Orphan versus Frankenstein, Rosemary's Baby versus The Vanishing, Friday the 13th versus Godzilla, Texas Chainsaw Massacre versus The Mist, I Know What You Did Last Summer versus Dracula, Final Destination versus They Live, and The Shining versus VHS. So, Took a while to get that bracket all set up, but we have a field ready for the best scary movies. I love Halloween. Big fan. Hey, make sure to give those trick-or-treaters some good stuff out there, okay? Give the little ones some good stuff. Give them some nice candy. Nothing about learning or anything like that. That's the fun night for them. Give them some good candy. No healthy stuff. No granola. That stuff's fine on a different day. Halloween, give them some good chocolate. NCAA football plays for the week. Still struggling in NCAA. Just kind of like, we've had one bad week, and then basically we've been around 500 since then. So 10-12 total against the spread. 4 plays this week for you. The first one is Notre Dame at Michigan. This Notre Dame, you can find, I found them on Bet America at +1. Harbaugh is 1-12 versus top 10 opponents against Michigan. Notre Dame's coming off a bye. Michigan's coming off a tough loss to Penn State. Notre Dame is number 1 in the nation in turnover margin. Michigan is ranked in the 80s. They have just a bad offense, and I don't know if they get down, if they're going to be able to keep up with Notre Dame off of another tough week, playing another tough opponent here. And Notre Dame still has a lot to play for. They need some help, but they, winning out and things breaking their way, they could have a chance to sneak in to a playoff. Notre Dame, you could get this money line if I think at -105 if you're getting +1 there. So let's just play Notre Dame money line there against Michigan. Second play, Kansas State. Look for the +24. I got that, and it's out there in some spots. 23 and a half is okay, but 24 is just so much nicer. They're playing Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a couple of tough games still left on their schedule. They still have to play Iowa State, Baylor, and then their rival Oklahoma State. Kansas State is really not bad. They actually have a pretty good pass defense, and their problem really is they don't score points. They offensively are not great. But I think they might be able to keep this game just within 24 here. It just feels like it's too many points. They could be down 30 and just get a garbage time score late. And I feel like this might be a game that Oklahoma's just kind of looking past a little bit with a couple big games still on their schedule for them to try to complete what's been an excellent season so far. Third play, Wisconsin plus the 14.5. Yeah, we all saw Wisconsin last week, 30-point favorite. They lost to Illinois, and it was a total trap game where they were looking ahead to this. This Wisconsin team, to me, they're as good as we've seen any of these really good Wisconsin teams, over the last decade. They're always good, but then, they kind of struggle in the big games. I don't know if they're going to beat Ohio State because Ohio State has looked as good as anyone, but 14.5 and 15 in some spots, that is just a bit too much. So, they can run the ball. Wisconsin can run the ball well. They'll slow things down. I don't think they're going to try to leave it in the hands of their quarterback. And the real key for Wisconsin is you can't get down early. If they can get the first score in the game, or if they're able to just kind of battle back and forth where they can keep running the ball, they cannot get too far behind, because if they have to become one-dimensional, that's where they're in real trouble. But I like Wisconsin in here, plus the 14.5. That's just too much. If you get 15s out there, take that. I'm on the Wisconsin side, obviously, so and the best line that you can get, always search for. And then we will go with LSU minus 10.5 against Auburn. I just don't like Auburn. I don't think much of Auburn, and LSU, it's funny because I'm going to basically say the same thing I said about LSU, but LSU is my favorite team in the country that's not my USC Trojans is to root for. They are so fun. Burrow is so good, and I think they're just going to – I really think they're going to beat up on Auburn in here, and I think Auburn will not be able to score and keep up with LSU. To me, I looked at a couple of the other bigger lines, and I just don't know how good Auburn really is. So, with Kansas State, we like the dog. With Wisconsin, we like the dog. We'll go the other way here, just because I think this is going to be a real big statement game for LSU. They have the second highest scoring team in the country. Auburn has not won at LSU since 1999. No, they don't need to win here, but I think this is at least a 2-score game, and I think LSU probably wins this game by 20. 4 plays, Notre Dame, money line, Michigan, make sure you're getting the plus, though. I don't want to take, if it's like plus, if it's like -2 or something, make sure you're getting the -105 on that money line. Kansas State plus the 24 against Oklahoma. Wisconsin plus the 14.5 at Ohio State. And then LSU minus the 10.5 against Auburn. Let's get into NFL Week 7 on the Thursday night. We talked a little bit about it last week. Kansas City crushed Denver even after Mahomes got injured. They sacked Flacco, and Denver, I think Flacco 8 times, and a total of 9 sacks in that game. And they were all over Denver. They absolutely crushed them. We'll spend a lot of time on the blowout games. The Pats beat the Jets 33-0, and this is the game for poor Sam Darnold, where Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts. We all kind of heard throughout the week. We heard he was mic'd up in that game, and he said he was seeing ghosts. Sam was 11 for 32 for 86 yards, 4 interceptions, and a fumble. The Patriots D, ranked by Football Outsiders, who is a very reputable website that, ranks everything based on DVOA, which DVOA is defense adjusted value over average. It's a system that breaks down every single play and compares a team's performance to the league average based on situation in order to determine value over average. This is some really good stuff. Love it. It's one of my favorite research tools when I'm, analyzing games, breaking the games down. I like to watch the film, and then you compare it with the numbers, and you have to do both, but these are great numbers to compare with the film. And the Patriots are the best all-time defense through 7 games. They are the absolute best. Now, they haven't played much of a schedule, but their defense has just been incredible. Now, remember, they've played a bad schedule, but they still have the 23rd remaining strength of schedule left. So this defense is legit, but I still think they're a little overvalued because of their schedule. We'll talk about the Cowboys-Eagles game real quick, too, because that was another blowout. It's bad, huh? The Thursday night game was awful. The Monday night game was awful. And the Sunday night game was awful. Just blowouts. The Cowboys just beat the crap out of the Eagles. The Eagles fumbled. They won 37-10. The Eagles fumbled on their first 2 drives, and they were both Dallas touchdowns. And the first one, they set the Cowboys up on the 14-yard line. Or the second TD set the Cowboys up on the 14-yard line. With 8:56 left in the first quarter, it was 14-0. And they're playing Dallas in Dallas. And Dallas is getting the ball to start the second half. Philly scored a touchdown. It was 14-7. And then a strong Cowboys second quarter. They scored 13 points. It was 27-7 at half. And that's really the game, because they get the ball to start. Philly just could not move the ball at all. Offensively, they were inept. They had 283 total yards. They were just playing from behind all game. Generally, you rack up some garbage total yards. Just garbage yards when you're behind, and they just could not at all. They were just 3 of 9 on third down. They had 4 turnovers. Wentz was bad. He threw into traffic for a couple times, and there should have been another interception. It was just an absolute beatdown by Dallas. The Eagles actually dropped from 8th in the DVOA rankings to 15th in one game. That's how bad they were overall. And they went from 6th to 18th in offense overall, just in that one game. What's crazy about the Eagles, and we'll hope they bounce back a little bit this week, because they're going to be a team we talk about in the game previews. They had 2 of the best single game ratings of the year in week 4 and week 5, but their other 5 games are negative scores. And it has a lot to do with the injuries that the Eagles have, but they've got more problems than just the injuries. Like, Wentz has not looked great. They've had some inconsistencies running the ball. Every time it feels like they're going to start running well, they don't. Their receivers have had some bad drops also. Overall, and their secondary's been bad. It's like, overall, for a team that I thought was going to be a lot better, they've been highly disappointing. And now we'll start with another beatdown. The Rams beat down the Falcons 37-10. I mean, the Falcons are just miserable. Zierlein actually missed a 40-yard field goal early in this game, but then Gurley had a nice 13-yard touchdown catch. He put the Rams up 10-3. Atlanta is 29th in the league in yards rushing per game. They're 25th in yards per rush. They only had 38 yards rushing total against the Rams. And you're just not going to be able to win when you're so one-dimensional like that. You have to be able to run the ball a little bit. And it's crazy because Freeman's not bad. The offensive line for the Falcons is just so bad. And this is the team that I was the most wrong about this year. I thought they would be a playoff team. I really did. I thought they'd bounce back. They had talent. Their defense just got a little banged up, and it's just been bad. I mean, I'll raise my hand and admit when I was wrong. This team was awful. I thought they would be able to win, 9, 10 games. Buffalo, they were struggling against Miami for a while. They took a big drop also in these DVOA rankings. Miami was up 14-9 halfway through the third quarter. They tried a fake field goal on 4th and 1 from the 4. They got it. But then it was 1st and goal at the 2. Miami got no points out of that. They ended up losing. They had a fumble, got it back. They lost 10 yards and then an interception. And Miami could have easily been up there 17-9. Could have scored a touchdown and been up even more. 21-9. Game could have been quite different. But then Buffalo scores a touchdown, and now all of a sudden it's 17-14 Buffalo. And both teams punt. Miami fumbles. Buffalo scores a touchdown. And then just quickly, Miami's down 10 when they could have been up double digits. That's what happens when you're a bad team. It flips for you that quickly. And the Bills, who I've backed a couple times this year, I like this Buffalo team. They are ranked as the worst 5-1 team in history. Now, they have had an easy schedule. Only New England has played an easier schedule so far, and then only New England plays an easier schedule over the course of the entire season. And the Patriots and Bills are projected to play 2 of the 5 easiest schedules that this site has ever tracked. And it's crazy. Kickers, this is a quote from them, kickers for some reason seem totally unable to kick against the Bills. Bills' opponents are 2 of 8 on field goals with only 1 of those blocked by the Bills. They've also missed 2 extra points. 2 of their wins over the Jets and the Titans are directly tied to missed kicks by the other team. So, a very good defense that struggled a little bit last week. Their offense has been not great. They might regress a little bit, but keep that in mind throughout the season as they go forward and they play against decent teams because they're a team that has benefited greatly from their schedule. Cincinnati, Jacksonville, the Jags 27, the Bengals 17. This was a really strong game for the Jags. It didn't quite look as much on paper. They actually should have won by a lot more. They got stopped on a 4th and 1 on their opening drive. They had to kick a field goal from the 3-yard line. The Bengals were actually up 9-7 in this game in the third quarter. And the Jags outgained the Bengals 460 to 291. They had 4 takeaways, and this moved the Jags all the way up, which is kind of crazy. They're the number 12th rated team overall in overall DVOA, and they're higher than Houston or Indianapolis now in their division, and they're higher ranked offensively than they are defensively. When we think about Jacksonville, we think of like a strong, dominant defense. But this year, their offense has actually been pretty efficient. They run the ball really, really well, and then Minshew is able to make big plays. And, this team is quietly 3-4. They're right in the thick of things in that wide open division as we all assumed. A division that we all assumed wide open. I don't know how many people assumed Jacksonville, especially after Foles went down. I like Jacksonville. I think they were one of the I bet them to win the division this year, and they were one of my sneaky teams. But then when Foles went down, I was concerned, and I've been so pleased with Minshew. The fact that he's able to just kind of keep them right around 500. Didn't expect this team to be like a 12-win team, but maybe a 9 or 10-win team. And, they get lucky in a couple games. The ball bounces for them. Hey, they're a 6-point favorite this weekend. 6.5-point favorite this weekend. 7, I think, now. Looking at it, yeah. It's moved all the way up to 7 about to play. So, Jags just were able to handle the Bengals there, and the Bengals are just awful. Minnesota, Detroit. This game was 42-30. The Vikings beat the Lions. Dalvin Cook had 25 carries for 142 yards. Cousins was 24 for 34 for 337 yards and 4 touchdowns. At one point in the game, Minnesota had 4 consecutive touchdown drives between the late first and the third quarter. He's the first quarterback in history to throw for 300 yards with 130-plus passer rating in 3 straight games. Yes, Kirk Cousins, who just a few weeks ago everybody was saying, bench the guy, get rid of him, what are we doing? Now, he's always going to be under the microscope a little bit. Mike Abadir, my co-host on the Mike Abadir show, mentioned this point yesterday, that because of the money, you're always going to hold him to a little bit of higher standard because how much he gets paid, but he's been excellent right now. And then Minnesota won again on Thursday night when they beat the Redskins. There were 4 touchdowns in this game for Marvin Jones. It was actually the 3rd straight loss for Detroit, and it was a bad loss. And now they lost their running back, Kerryon Johnson. He had to go on IR. Minnesota had 504 yards total. They had 7.1 yards per play. Detroit had 433. It was a back-and-forth game, and Detroit was down 28-24 with about 8:50 left in the game, and the Lions went for a 4th and 2 on the mini 41, stopped them. Vikings were able to score a touchdown and get up 35-24. And in a game where you're both scoring and going back and forth, now there are a few little things that happened throughout the game that hurt the Lions, but you have to just be able to kind of answer and counter and back and forth. Minnesota is 4th in the NFL in yards per rush as a team and 3rd in yards per game rushing with 160. They just run the ball really well with Cook, obviously, and then even when it's not Cook, with Madison. Packers 42, the Raiders 24. This game was 14-10 Green Bay when Oakland had the ball on the 1-yard line. They were about to score a touchdown, and they fumbled. It would have been 17-14 Oakland. Instead, Green Bay gets the ball. They go 80 yards in a minute 37 to score a touchdown before the half. So now they're up 20. Now they're up 21-10. And then Green Bay gets the ball to start the second half. And then they get up 28-10, and that's just it. I thought the Raiders played really well, and Rodgers was incredible. He had 429 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. He had 8 different receivers. He was 25 of 31. He had a perfect passer rating for the first time in his career. Oakland actually had more total yards, and they ran the ball much better, but the 8 penalties for 97 yards and the big fumble that hurt them, a couple turnovers for the Raiders total, so that ended up being the difference in the game. And Green Bay with Rodgers had the best single game offensive performance of the year so far. It's always amazing when someone like Rodgers, who's been around for so long, does something that he's never done before or has a best game that he's ever had before. Amazing. And the Packers, they're 6-1 right now. Colts 30, Texans 23. Couple real important parts of this game. Third downs. Indy was 8 of 16. They're good on third down with Brissett. Houston was just 4 of 12. And Brissett had he had a really good game. He did have some mistakes late, though, that could have cost him because the Colts just kept leaving the Texans in the game, giving him a chance. He was 26 for 39 for 326 yards. He had 4 touchdowns. And of his incompletions, 6 of them were throwaways. So he was really good overall. He was only sacked 1 time. The Colts couldn't run the ball, so they had to lean on Brissett a little bit. Early in the game, the Texans had an opportunity kind of to get up a little bit bigger, but they were only able to score field goals every time they got to the red zone. One of the times they actually started on the Colts 4. And so at halftime, it was 14-9 Colts. Colts got up 28-16. And, there were a couple big plays, a big 4th down that there were 2 instances late where the Texans got a 4th and then they got stopped for a 4th. But it just kept seeming like Brissett would kind of help. The Colts, for a team that's very well coached, did make some mental mistakes late. And they didn't really come back to bite them, but they very well could have. Brissett stopped the clock when they were up. He threw a couple passes away. He did that actually multiple times. All of his throwaways were late in the game. And Pascal ran out of bounds at one point when he didn't have to. The Texans just kept getting the ball back and getting the ball back. And there was a really weird play at the end of the game where the Texans had the ball, they couldn't move it, and instead of down 5, instead of they were going to take a safety, but they called a timeout before taking the safety, which is bizarre. If you're going to take a safety, just take the delay of game. It doesn't matter. Take the safety. The Texans took the safety. The Colts got the ball. The Texans got the ball back, but then they only had two timeouts. It was really weird. Those are the little things with Bill O'Brien that people kind of scratch their head about. Yeah, these two teams will be, fighting it out for this division. The Cardinals and Kyler Murray has just been so impressive. He's been so much better than I had just ever imagined. The Cardinals sacked Daniel Jones 8 times for negative 67 yards. They had an interception, 3 fumbles, 2 fumbles lost. The Giants were down in this game 17-0. And they came back, but they had a couple issues also. Aldrick Rojas doinked a field goal. He missed one. They were able to get back, cut the deficit to 24-21 before a late field goal from the Cards. And the Cards felt like they kind of ran out of gas a little bit. Edmonds, who was really good at running the ball early in the game, he seemed like he was a little bit tired. He's kind of going to get negative yards over and over to finish the game. The really interesting numbers, though, are also with Lamar Jackson and what he's been doing. And he is on pace to set all kinds of rookie records for passing, for pass completions. He's going to be top 5 in rushing attempts. And I just didn't think that he was this good of a thrower. He's really, really impressed me. 49ers, Redskins, this game was a complete bog. There was rain and wind. This game was 0-0 at the half. And, Washington was in this game late, but they never really felt like they were going to win the game. Garoppolo was not good. He was not great in the weather. And they made, Shanahan and the 49ers made a lot of adjustments in the second half to kind of run the ball and short passes and not really ask too much of Jimmy G. There were only 21 total completions in this game and only 228 passing yards total. Both teams missed field goals, and then after missing the field goals, you could tell that they didn't really even want to continue to try longer field goals, so they just were starting to go for it a lot more. First half, the Redskins, they were tied. And they had some opportunities in the third quarter, with 1:29 left. They were on the 49ers 29-yard line, but then a fumble gave the 49ers the ball at their own 41, and they were able to move the ball a little bit. Kittle, Tevin Coleman, at least they were able to realize that they shouldn't have kicked the field goal there. They went for it, and they just were a little bit better a coach team. You could tell that Callahan just doesn't do anything creative, and that's the difference in a game like this. This was a bad game, a trap game type for San Francisco. They've been in some good spots so far throughout the year. This was not a good one with the weather and the travel. Jimmy G was struggling. They're banged up now on the offensive line. This is a game that a lesser coach team would have lost. And so I continue to be impressed with San Francisco each and every week. The Chargers just continue to find ways to lose each and every year. It's unbelievable. They were inside of the red zone with 49 seconds left in the game. Rivers to Eckler. Looked like Eckler scored, but his elbow was down, and it was ruled a touchdown on the field, but they showed that he was actually down. So that gave them first and goal from the 1-yard line with 39 seconds. False start penalty. They backed up, but then a defensive pass interference. So they're right back where they were, 34 seconds left. Melvin Gordon looks like he gets into the end zone. No, not a touchdown. Gordon had reached the ball across, but ball at the ground. And before it hit the ground, his knee was down. So it looked like twice now they scored a game-winning touchdown, and it was overturned. 19 seconds. They run the same play for Gordon. He's down again, but he fumbles. It's incredible that they can't get in. Titans recover it, and then Tannehill takes a knee. And one of the bigger problems for the Chargers this year, they have a lot of injuries. Their defense has been miserable. They're ranked number 27 overall. Tannehill had 312 yards and an 80% completion rate. They're hurting without some of their secondary. Derwin James is the big one. They are in some trouble right now. The Chargers are 2-5. Final two games of the week were Saints-Bears, and this one was a beatdown. And it's not even as close as the final score looks. The Saints were without Kamara and Jared Cook. Latavius Murray had 119 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. And Michael Thomas had 131 yards receiving on 9 receptions. The game was 9-0. And then the Bears ran a kickoff back 102 yards. I mean, they could not move the ball at all until it was late and in garbage time. So they got a score there. It was 9-7. Then at one point, the game was 36-10 before the garbage TDs for the Bears. They only had 17 yards rushing total. And their last 3 drives, they had 75, 57, and 30 yards. And they only had 252 total yards. So all those drives and all the points to make it 36-25 were garbage when the game was just never in doubt. Ravens-Seattle game, this one pissed me off because I had the over here. We had the over. The over was 48.5. And it was 30-16. We just needed another 3 here somewhere. And Lamar struggled. This game was kind of wet. Lamar struggled in the middle of the game. Russell Wilson really wasn't great at all either. Wilson was 20 for 41, and Lamar was 9 for 20 for 143 yards. But Lamar ran the ball really well. And that's why there wasn't just another score that we needed. 14 carries, 116 yards rushing, and a touchdown for Lamar. And the Ravens now are 5-2. And the fact that they were able to win a game like that when Lamar had a bad stretch in the game, one point, he went 1 for 9 for 33 yards, and in the red zone, he was 0 for 3 with a sack, and on third down, he was 2 for 5 for 16 yards, and only one of them converted the third down as far as completions. 2 for 5, and then one of them was a third down conversion, so he wasn't great, and they still won. That game went under. We've kind of been preaching the fact that Seattle, I don't think they're a bad team, but they had a couple victories that maybe shouldn't have been victories, and that overinflates teams, and it kind of catches up with you at some point. I think that happened last week with Seattle. Before we get into the Week 8 slate and our plays for Week 8, I want to let you know about, probably hear all my papers shuffling in the background. I want to let you know about Thrive Fantasy. I play in this every week. If you play fantasy, like fantasy football, basketball, baseball, anything, they have contests for all. They have contests that you can get in for $1, for $2, for $5, all the way up to $100. So depending on whatever level that you're playing, I'm in these contests every week. You can play against me, with me. Go right now and sign up. Oh, that'll be a great soundbite. You can play with me. Go sign up right now, thrivefantasy.com, and use the promo code Gino, and just deposit $10. When you use the promo code and you deposit $10, you'll get a $10 bonus. So go right now and deposit 10. You'll end up getting $20, and you can go mess around and check it out and see if it interests you. It's DFS, but it's different. It's based on prop bets. So you have to select the lineup based on 10 prop bets for the weekend. You'll select over or under, and there'll be a point total assigned to, if you're going to pick over, you'll get 100 points. If you're going to pick under, you're going to get 80 points, something like that. And it'll be, is Tom Brady going to go over or under 250 yards passing? If you bet props, if you're very into props, if you just like DFS, if you want a little more action, go check it out right now. And every time you do, it helps me. I get a little chunk of it right back. So if you like me, if you like fantasy, go check it out. Make sure to use that promo code GINO, and you'll get that $10 bonus credit. But you have to deposit 10, at least 10. Deposit that 10 with the promo code GINO. NFL, Week 8. Saw the Thursday night game, Washington, Minnesota. We'll recap that one next week for you. Seattle, -6.5, 7 at Atlanta. Not sure if Matt Ryan is going to be playing in this one, but he did practice. He looks like he's going to be in. This is a stay away for me. I feel like this is about right on. I feel like Seattle wins this game at least by a touchdown. They're better. They should be able to do whatever they want with Atlanta's defense. And if Matt Ryan's banged up or not 100%, if Schaub's in the game offensively, is Atlanta going to be able to keep up? I just don't think so. To me, this is a game where I stay away from overall. I have 5 plays for this week. One of them comes in the Philly at Buffalo game. You can get this game now at 2.5 for Philly, plus 2.5. You know, I actually don't mind the Philly money line either. Look around if you can, get the best money line that you can find. Philly has a really bad secondary, but can Buffalo exploit it with their offense? When we think Buffalo, we don't think great passing game, right? We think more of a good defensive team that can, just keep the score low, and then maybe Allen can make some plays. Philadelphia absolutely needs this game. They were miserable against Dallas last week. They're still a little bit banged up, but is Buffalo going to exploit them the way Dallas did? We already mentioned just a minute ago how bad Buffalo is in some of the metrics. They struggled last week with Miami. I take Philly in here to win this game straight up. I'm taking Philly to win the game. You can get plus 2.5 points also on Philly. They cannot go to 3-5. That would be really bad for them to get a couple games behind Dallas already. I think this is a game they have to win. I think Buffalo's feeling a little bit better about where they stand right now at 5-1. Let's go Philly, plus the 2.5, and play Philly a little money line there. Chargers at the Bears. The Bears are 3.5, 4-point favorites, depending on where you look. And the Chargers are 2-5 right now. But do you trust the Bears and Trubisky? There's bad vibes. There's bad mojo. I think Nagy's kind of getting a free pass over there. He was supposed to be this offensive whiz, and he has not been able to get – they haven't been able to run the ball. He hasn't been able to figure out a way to make Trubisky not look horrendous. I mean, he has some talent, Trubisky. He can move. He can, run a little bit. He's not a complete statue in the pocket. You should be able to figure something out to make him at least with your defense. And, the Bears should be able to run the ball better. So this is another stay away game for me. 3.5, 4. I would lean the Chargers, but on the road at Chicago, no play. New York Giants at Detroit. Detroit is my minus 6.5. I'm seeing, this is another stay away game for me. I think Detroit probably wins this game by a touchdown. But Detroit, and they're coming off a couple really bad tough losses. 3 games in a row that, they probably went into feeling they were going to win. A couple of the games they got screwed against Kansas City. They had poor officiating against Green Bay, same thing. And then last week, game on paper looks like it was a blowout, but a couple things go differently, and Detroit can win that game. Did they bounce back here? I think they do. They're playing a team that they're just better than. The problem is can they run the ball now? We know Johnson's going to be out. It's going to probably be a lot of passing. The Giants secondary, not great. So I would lean Detroit in here, but this is not going to be one of my 5 plays for the week. Tampa at Tennessee. Tennessee, they got lucky to win that game against the Chargers last week. We can rip the Chargers all we want, but they should have won that game last week again. They figure out ways to blow games. Tennessee did nothing. That was all on the Chargers as far as winning that game. Now they're back home. They're a 2.5-point favorite, and this is the type of game Tennessee loses. They do have Tannehill, though, and I cannot trust Jameis, so I'm going to stay away from this game. But this would totally be a play normally on against Tennessee. I just don't know if I trust Jameis enough to make him one of my 5 plays, so didn't this week. Denver at Indianapolis. Denver's coming off that miserable loss to Kansas City where Flacco was just crushed. He looked terrible. Everybody just assumed that when Mahomes went down, Denver was going to come back, and that was not the case. Now Denver goes and plays Indy. Indy's coming off a couple really good wins. Indy is up to 4-2 now, and they are leading their division. I think this is a sneaky game. And I would lean Denver. I'm not going to play this game. Indy is a 4.5, 5-point favorite. I would take the Denver side. This might, and Indy just played a tough divisional game last week. I would lean Denver on this side, but won't be one of my plays. Bengals playing the Rams. This game is in London. I hate when they have London games in the middle of the card. The purpose of having a London game is to be a standalone game. Have that game at 6:30. Everybody likes the early game. Even if you're not someone who likes to get up early, you don't mind when you're getting up if there's a game on right there. It's one game. It's not going to, it's not hard to set your lineup the night before. I don't understand why. You have to imagine from like a rating standpoint, more people, this game in the middle of the day, who's going to be paying attention to the Cincinnati Bengals at the Bengals Rams game? And early in the morning, everybody would be. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. Rams are 12.5 point favorites. This is a tough place to play the Bengals. And this is a game that I just stay away from. The Bengals have looked like one of the worst teams in the league, but could the Rams be up by, 17 and the Bengals score late? Yeah. So I stay away from this game. And I don't feel like we have to bet it because it's not the early standalone game, right? It's just going to be one of the others. Cardinals at New Orleans Saints. I mean, one of these days the Saints are not going to cover. And maybe it's this week. There have been talks about Drew Brees possibly coming back. I don't know why they would, and why not just wait another week or two when Teddy has been so good. And in the division, we all figured New Orleans going to lose a couple games at least or be in some trouble when Brees went down, and they're 6-1 right now. I would lean Arizona, though. 10.5 is too much. Arizona can move the ball. New Orleans definitely looks like one of the best teams in the league. This just feels like maybe a game that they don't get up for. New Orleans playing Arizona coming in. So I would lean Arizona, but won't be one of my plays. You know who we are going to play? Our boy Sam Darnold. He saw some ghosts last week. This line has already moved 2 points. Now, I think it's actually moved 2.5 points. It's up to +7. I just clicked and made the wager on the +7. They're playing at Jacksonville. And the Jags D isn't as good as we think. I like the Jags. They're feisty, but this feels like too much. This game should be like 4.5, right where it opened and kind of where it was hovering. And then it moved up to 6.5, 7 now. Too much. Everybody saw Sam on Monday night. The Jets looked horrible. They just played the Patriots. This defense is not as good. I think the Jets are going to run the ball, and this game is close. Jacksonville doesn't really blow anybody out. Mentioned even last week, they won that game against the Bengals by 10, and they really should have won by a lot more. They just don't feel like the type of team that's going to, win games by 20, and I think that keeps the Jets within striking range. So the Jets off that horrible, horrible week. Everybody's going to go the other way. We go the opposite with the Jets. Carolina at San Francisco. That's a really good game. And I know a lot of people are on the Carolina side. I'm staying away from this game. I do think that 6 might feel a little bit high. At 5.5, 6 points if you're on the San Francisco side. They're a 5.5 point, 6 point favorite. But both of these teams' defense have been very impressive. I've not been, I've not been as high on San Francisco's schedule. What they do week in and week out is really impressive. This feels like a stay away for me because I can't get a real good feel for it. So this will not be in my arsenal this week. But the next 2 games on the slate will. Cleveland, the Browns. Yes, at New England, we are playing the Cleveland Browns. Minus or plus 12.5 or 13. Of course, we're going to take the plus 13 because we're on the Browns side. That's just too much. Are the Browns sloppy? Yes. All of the metrics on paper look like all of the numbers and stuff, they're worse than they look when you watch the games. They've been really unlucky with some drop passes that have turned into interceptions. They've been screwed in at least 2 games by the referees also. Because what happened, the Browns came out week 1 and they were horrible and they had a ton of penalties. And so they kind of set themselves as this sloppy, undisciplined, penalized team. So anytime there's an either or call, a play that could go either way, the refs always penalize the Browns. And I don't know if that's going to continue to happen. It sure might, because they're the kind of team that talks. But I don't think when you watch their games, they're not as bad as the bad teams that the Patriots have been heavily favored over, like the Jets or the Dolphins. They're just not. This Browns defense is very good, and they can run the ball. They have a top 5 rushing offense in the league. Now, if they stuff them and make Baker throw, and that's where the secondary, now that's where they can get in trouble. But 13, that's a lot against a Browns team that's competent. Are they bad? And yes, but these are the type of teams that I like to bet, because when the Browns are bad, they look so bad that everybody just overreacts. Those are the type of teams that you like to play. The teams that are really, really bad are hard to play, and we're going to have one of them as our plays this weekend. But the teams that are Jekyll and Hyde or inconsistent, I actually kind of like playing those teams, because at least you know that this team has the ability to cover or to win a game. Like, if you told me the Browns beat the Patriots, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not going to bet that. I don't think it happens. I'm saying if you told me if you told me like a Dolphins team or a Redskins team or one of them beat the Patriots, I'd say no. And so and this line is treating the Browns like it should be 9, 10, double digits, not 12 and a half into 13 now. Way too much. The Raiders at Houston. Oakland has had this brutal schedule. Houston's -7 in this game, the Texans. They have been on the road for a long time, but they're going to get to go home next week, and Houston's going to go to London next week. Houston is 8-11-1 against the spread as a home favorite in their last 20, and they're only 1-2 this year. They're not very good as a heavy favorite. They're going to be missing Fuller. They're missing an O-lineman who was a big, big key to a 2-game streak where they started to really seem to gel. And then Howard missed last week, and you could tell they were not quite the same offensive line. They gave up 3 sacks. Previous 2 weeks, they had been held under 3, and that's the key number with Watson. 1 or 2 sacks, and he's 7-0. Let's go Raiders, plus the 7. That's just too much. This Raiders team is feisty. Mentioned, you look on paper, does it look like they get blown out last week? Yeah, that fumble by Derek Carr really changed everything in that game. He scores there, the Raiders go up. Maybe Green Bay doesn't come back with a long, sustained drive like they had, and they were able to score back-to-back touchdowns. It just changed everything. I like Oakland, plus the 7 at Houston. Speaking of Green Bay, they are a 4-point favorite on the road at Kansas City in the Sunday night game. Kansas City will be starting Matt Moore. Now, there are some smoke screens out there that Mahomes is practicing and he might be playing. I can't imagine they'll come right back with Mahomes, especially after they were able to get a win last week. But this is a big game. I mean, on paper, this was a Sunday night game. Mahomes, Rodgers, these would have been 2 of the best teams in the league. I probably loses a little bit of the luster with Matt Moore in there. But he's capable. You know, you could do a lot worse for backup quarterbacks, and Green Bay's defense was really good to start, and they've been a little lackluster as of late. I'm staying away from this game, though. Kansas City is a 4-point underdog at home with a very good coach, Andy Reid, with extra time to get more ready to play in this game. But I don't know. This, to me, is a stay away. I like other spots, and not this one as much. But on the Monday night game, we're going to play Miami. Yes, the Miami Dolphins at Pittsburgh, plus 14. Should Mason Rudolph in Pittsburgh be a 14-point favorite over anyone? No. Miami can actually move the ball. They've covered their last 2 games now. They're a much better team and a much feistier team with Fitzpatrick. The last 2 weeks, they actually look like how bad professional football teams normally look, not the way that Miami looked the first few weeks when they looked historically bad. So they might be able to win a game now, and I don't think they're going to win this game, but if you told me this game was close or tied late, I would not be shocked at all. I'm going Miami now, plus the 14. So let's recap the 5 plays. Philly, plus 2.5 at Buffalo. Look around for that money line too. Grab the biggest money line you can. I think Philly can win this game straight up. Jets plus the 7 at the Jags. We're going to go Sam Darnold. Everyone's talking about the seeing ghost, so that's built a couple extra points into this line. We have to take the Jets in here. The Browns plus the 13 at the Pats. Yeah, the Browns are coming off a bye also. They've had some time to prepare for the Pats. Do I think they win this game? Probably not. Is there a massive coaching discrepancy in here with Belichick and Freddie Kitchens? Absolutely. But do I think the Browns are talented enough to maybe have Odell break one, or Landry, get open against that good Patriots secondary, or Chubb break a run? Yeah. And I think they can stay in this game, and the Patriots offense is not great. The Browns defense might be able to, hold this Patriots offense at bay. So the real key will be, how fluid will the Browns offense be? Let's take the Browns plus the 13. The Raiders plus the 7 at Houston. Houston's not as great as a home favorite. I don't know if the Raiders can win this game, but I think it could be a little closer. That feels a little too high now, up at plus 7. And then Miami at plus the 14 at Pittsburgh. This is just a play against Pittsburgh, really. And the fact that Fitzpatrick, he might be he's the better quarterback, right? Is Fitzpatrick better than Rudolph? I think so. I don't think either of these teams are great. If two teams you don't think are great are playing, I'm always going to take the points in a spot like this. Miami plus the 14 at Pitt. Philly, Jets, Browns, Raiders, Miami, 5 plays for me. Let's close things out with a couple horse racing plays. So we have a few for Friday, October the 26th it is Friday as I'm recording this. Saturday, October the 26th at Keeneland. 4 plays for you. The first one, not as much of a bet everything on, but just keep an eye on this horse and maybe throw him into some of your exotics. In the 5th race at Keeneland, the number 1 Descent, the first time starter. He's a little sneaky to me. Going 6 furlongs, maiden special weights in the 5th at Keeneland on Saturday, the number 1 Descent. Now let's get to the other 3 that I really like. Let's go to race number 6. And we're going to go to the 6, Girlfriend Rocket. This is not a very strong race. And I don't know who really wants to go long in here. I think some of the top contenders might be better going a little bit shorter. And that leads me to the 6, Girlfriend Rocket. She tried the grass last time out. Didn't run well. Just put a line right through it. It was at Kentucky Downs to completely excuse that race. And let's go back and look at the race on July the 18th at Saratoga. That's key to me because I think this is a filly who's always wanted to go long. So when you look at her first couple sprint races, you can really be forgiving. I don't think they were bad. And then she raced in January. That's probably a race you can excuse because she didn't race again from January to June. And then when she came back in June, that's another sprint. I think her first 4 races are really hard to gauge. And she showed what she is on July the 18th at Saratoga, and she's a horse who can just kind of grind away. I don't think there's a lot in here. In that Saratoga race, she had a slow start. She was last early. She was wide into the turn, but then she settled pretty nicely. She kept to the outside, and she was a clear-cut second that day. I think she fits really, really well in here, mainly because, everybody else and the races they watch, I'm not really impressed. And I think Girlfriend Rocket fits well. The 6, Girlfriend Rocket. If we can get anything over 7-2, we'll make a win wager. I think the line's a little too high, so she should be around 7-2 on our line. That's the 6, Girlfriend Rocket in the 6th at Keeneland. Let's move to race number 9. Closing day at Keeneland, and then a really fun Churchill card that we'll get to for some Sunday races right after this. And on the 9th race at Keeneland, it is the Fayette. Why can't Mosito Rojo win this race? I think we look at connections and we look at where he's kind of come from, and we forget that, he just went over to Churchill Downs and won. He's a multiple graded stakes winner. And to me, why I like him a lot in a race like this is his running style. He's not a stone cold closer. If you have a horse who's a stone cold closer and they're stepping up in class, I don't necessarily always like to use them because maybe they just get outrun against better. But when you have a horse like this who has a nice kind of tactical running style, he should put himself right into the race. He should be sitting just a couple lengths off, and it should have every opportunity, if good enough. And I think he is. Nobody in here scares me. Tom's D'Etat, sure, he's capable of running a big race. Mr. Freeze, capable of running a big race. Bal Harbor, sure, they are. But you're going to get a better price on Mosito Rojo, who's in better form than all of them. The 5 in the 9th, Mosito Rojo, anything over 9-2. Let's make a win wager, 4-1 over. Let's take Mosito Rojo. And then the 10th race at Keeneland on Saturday, the 26th. Let's go to the 7, Bye Bye Melvin. Showed a little speed going long in the debut at Saratoga in July, and then came back on the 29th at Laurel. He broke well. He was kind of taken to mid-pack. Then he got hooked a little bit wide. He was 3 deep. He was 4 deep. He was in between. He had wide trip. It wasn't a great trip at all. Multiple ways. Now you get the jock who rode him in his debut back aboard, so he knows him a little bit. And Landeros has had a nice meeting at Keeneland. I got a feeling this guy's just better than what we've seen so far. The number 7, Bye Bye Melvin. Let's make a wager on Bye Bye Melvin. If we can get anything around 6-1, we will play Bye Bye Melvin to win. So the Keeneland Saturday plays. 5th race, keep an eye on the 1, Descent. Just kind of throw them in, maybe using some exotics. And then the horses that we like to win. The 6th race, the number 6, Girlfriend Rocket. The 9th race, the number 5, Mosito Rojo. I've probably said that name 10 different ways every time I say it. And the number 7, Bye Bye Melvin in the 10th race at Keeneland. So 5th race, 6th race, 9th race, and 10th race are the plays there at Keeneland. And then we will move to Churchill Downs for Sunday. What's really fun about the Churchill Downs Sunday card is it's all 2-year-olds. They have 11 races carded that are all 2-year-old races, which you don't get to see all too often, and it's really fun. I love this card each and every year. There's always a couple really nice horses that run on this card. Before we get into it, though, want to let you know about one of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast, Cindy Carava. Right now, go to cindycarava.com. She's a full-service realtor, and she can help you out with anything that you need. If you're, thinking about buying, selling, or leasing, make sure to get to cindycarava.com. Send her an email, cindyc.realtor@gmail.com. I've known her personally for a decade. She is one of the nicest and most genuine people you will ever meet. She works out of the San Gabriel Valley, and she's out of North San Diego County, so she's all around Santa Anita, she's all around Del Mar. Husband Jack Carava, trainer, we all know here on the Southern California circuit. She can help you improve your home if you're just looking for maybe landscapers or painters or gardeners. If you need help with a loan, she can connect you with people who will be able to help pre-approve you. And she has been a big supporter of That's What G Said from the beginning. So please, if you are ever thinking about it, or right now, just go put the website down and bookmark it. Because if you're thinking maybe down the road, you're looking to improve your home, maybe you just want to find out how much your home is worth. Send her a message, and she will give you the estimate. Anything you need at all, make sure to tell her I said hello. Absolutely love Cindy Carava. Close things out at Churchill. Really fun card to handicap with some of these future stars. And we'll play 2 races on the card. Again, I'm trying to not go head on into anything too much right now with the Breeders' Cup next week, because we always will play quite a bit and raise the bankroll a little on that day, because the value is there. The pools are a little bit bigger, and you can find horses that might be 5, 8, 10-1 that wouldn't be on any other day. 4th race on Sunday, the 27th at Churchill Downs. The 4th race, the maiden special weight, mile and a 16th, and we're going to go to the number 5, Cleopatra's Charm. There's not a ton of speed in this race, and Cleopatra's Charm comes out of a race going 7 furlongs at Churchill Downs. She broke well. She was in between. She was, within just a couple lengths, but she was in a tough spot. She was always in between horses. She kept looking for a smooth, clear journey, a clear path, and she couldn't find one. And she still ran really well. She looked very mature and patient for a 2-year-old. Kind of hung in down there. She angled out 3 deep and in between horses. I thought she should have been second and maybe got eased up on a little bit late, and that's maybe why there's a jock change in here to put Saez aboard. And I just don't think there's any other speed in here. I hope they put her right on the front end. Even if she sits right behind, I think she's going to be a very, very tough. Now, what concerns me is this barn is really cold. Dwayne Lucas, they haven't won. I think they're close to about the last 30. Believe their last win was the very beginning of September and it was at Saratoga. Nonetheless, you should be able to get a little bit better price on her because of that. So let's just make sure she's 7-2. Cleopatra's Charm, the number 5, we will play to win in race number 4 at Churchill Downs. And then we'll go to the 10th race. This is a fun race, the Street Sense. Now, the money's going to come in on South Bend. There'll probably be some money on Tap It to Win, but I'm going to talk about the 2 inside horses the most, and I think those are who I'm going to key in most of my exotics. I do like Tap It to Win, who was on the lead into the turn, but he was taken back, and he just didn't really seem to respond well. He didn't want to take back, and so he was kind of all in early. I wonder if they maybe just let loose with him and try to let him go, or maybe they've figured out that they can get him to relax a little bit more. But he's very talented, and his best might be as good as any in here. So if he is like around 4-1, that's fair. But I do like Sprawl the most. And the real reason why I like Sprawl, the win last out was very good. It was actually the 2-back race where he was behind Maxfield, who was your next out Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity winner. And in the debut, he was behind a nice horse named Gozilla, who came back out and was graded stakes placed in his second start. Sprawl on September the 14th at Churchill was in tight down on the inside. He got squeezed back. He was moving really well in between horses, but he got backed up into by a tiring horse that was in front of him. And he really had no shot to come on again. And so, you see the race. He was actually favored in that race over Maxfield. Then he comes back and he was 7-1 at Keeneland when he won. I like Sprawl quite a bit in here. He's the horse to bet for me. He should be right, like to me, 7-2. So anything over that, you're wagering nice on Sprawl. The number 2, Tap It to Win. Don't leave him out of your exotics. I don't really have any knocks on South Bend, Silver Prospector, or some of the others in here, but I do think the 2 inside horses are your best 2 to use, and the number 1, Sprawl, is the one to bet. So the 2 plays at Churchill, 4th race, number 5, Cleopatra, and 10th race, number 1, Sprawl. Use the number 2, Tap It to Win in your exotics. That will do it for me, folks, and I'm going to get started right away on the Breeders' Cup handicapping right now, and I'll hope to have a full Breeders' Cup show out for you not long after the final entries have been announced next week. So I'm going to get a lot of my handicapping done over the next couple days. That way, when the entries come out, all we'll really have to do is add in a little jockey stuff, who's riding where, who's going in which races for sure, the post positions, and so there really won't be as much to have to finish up. If you have a second, anytime you can go leave me a nice 5-star rating on iTunes, those are awesome. They literally like putting cash in my pocket. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, over on YouTube too. We're going to try to blow up the YouTube channel over the next couple weeks, so we're going to be doing some YouTube exclusive stuff on there. So make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, SoundCloud, Google Podcast, TuneIn, anywhere you get your podcast. That's what G said. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Let's make some money. Joey, my friend, close us out.